Hello, BookTube. On a beautiful summer afternoon, sunny and warm. It's not quite as warm as I would like it to be, but it's warm. The window is open. The birds are chirping. There's the gentle sound of traffic outside. It's not that bad. And I have a few mail packages that I want to open with you. This is just the morning's mail. I think more will come today. The only the benefit of these shorter mail hauls is that you all get to watch them without planning a whole day around them. They're not 45 minutes long. The only negative that I'm seeing is that sometimes they make me a little complacent, and I think, well, we already did the mail, and then I get another mail shipment and just open it myself off camera, which is bad. So I'm going to have to figure out a way around that. It's something to do with that. But first, let's go through these. I think we've got four. Yeah, we've got four packages here. Let's see if anything is of intense interest. First one is from Yale. Oh my. Okay, this is by Jonathan Phillips. Why do I know that name? I know that name. Okay. He wrote a couple of Crusade books that I thought were quite good. And this is due in August. This is The Life and Legend of the Sultan Saladin. The Life and Legend of Saladin. In 1187, Saladin marched triumphantly into Jerusalem, ending decades of struggle against the Christians and reclaiming the holy city for Islam. 4 years later, he fought off the armies of the Third Crusade, which were commanded by Europe's leading monarchs. A fierce warrior and savvy diplomat, Saladin's his unparalleled courtesy, justice, generosity, and mercy are not him. They are not a savvy warrior and a fierce diplomat. But anyway, let's see. His unparalleled courtesy, justice, generosity, and mercy were reversed both by his fellow Muslims and his Christian rivals such as Richard the Lionheart. Combining thorough research with vivid storytelling, Jonathan Phillips offers a fresh and captivating look at the triumphs, the failures, and the contradictions of one of the Crusade's most unique figures. Unique is an all-encompassing adjective. You're either unique or you're not. There's not more or less unique, but that's okay. I see that all the time. It's just very unique. People say, oh, this is very unique. Now, it's either unique or it's not. But this is great. This is fantastic. This is a whole biography of Saladin, and it seems like not just a biography of him, but also a mythography of him, which is really important because he entered into myth in his own lifetime. I have one biography of Saladin that I really like, a reprint of a French biography in an English language translation. So this is... Steve wants to review this now. I want to review this, very much so. All right, and I think I know where to ask. But all right, so that's a great start. A biography coming out in late August. That's wonderful. So let's move on. Let's hope for more. All right, the first one was Yale. The second one is Harvard. This is September. This is by Francois Baylis, and it is Altered Inheritance, CRISPR, CRISPR, and ethics, and the ethics of human genome editing. Oh my. Okay. Science fantasy has officially become science fact. We are now capable of editing human DNA. In May of 2018, leaders in the gene editing field predicted that engineering babies by modifying their genes would soon be possible. None predicted, though, that 5 short months later, in November of 2018, 2 babies grown from genetically modified embryos would be born. The age of genetic editing is upon us. Using CRISPR-Cas9, scientists have figured out how to grow crops that can fight climate change, enhance the colors of butterflies' wings, and create algae that produces biofuel. The terminally ill may soon be cured, and couples carrying life-threatening diseases will be able to give birth to healthy babies that are biologically theirs. But with every promising genetic opportunity comes urgent ethical, legal, and cultural questions. Who will have access to this genetic technology? The extremely wealthy. That's one question to answer. Let's see if we can answer all of these. First question has an easy answer. The extremely wealthy. Who will decide which diseases warrant editing? The parents. Should deafness or dwarfism be genetically corrected? Yes, of course they should be. There's nothing unenlightened about that. Of course they should be. Many within these communities would argue against it. Will they have a say? In all democratic countries they will have a say. Although why anyone would argue against genetically correcting deafness in an embryo, in a baby that has yet to be born, is beyond me, literally beyond me. Why would you do that? Why would you be vigorously against? Why would you be vigorously in favor of a handicap for a child? Why would you do that? Why would you say, okay, here's a baby in the womb. I am extremely wealthy, so I have the technology at my disposal to correct a genetic ear defect that my doctor has already told me this child will be born with. If I do nothing, this child will be born and grow up in a world without Beethoven, without Bach, without Mozart, without hearing the words "I love you," unless they use technology. If I do this procedure, which harms no one, and which I have the money to afford, then yes, then all of that is for that child. That child will now have all of that. Doesn't make them a Superman, doesn't make them a freak of nature, doesn't turn its back on anybody that has a handicap now. That just is insane to me to think, and yet I'm sure this pub sheet is true. I'm sure there are people who would object in all cases. Even maybe some people in extreme circumstances, a life-threatening illness, and maybe religion would be at the heart of that, maybe so. Let's get on with the questions. What will happen to nations who ban this technology on religious or ideological grounds? Religious grounds, I knew it. I knew that would come up, that you're interfering with God's will to do this. I don't think, though, that the banning of the technology will be much of an issue in our lifetime, because I'm pretty sure that the technology will be segregated only for the extremely wealthy. Or those who enthusiastically employ it. What will happen to countries that enthusiastically employ it? Will, for instance, countries employ it too much? Where will you draw the line with parents who want unrealistic changes, weird changes? What will you say then? What will you say to a parent like, oh God, the ethical questions are endless. They're just endless. What if parents want to use this technology to alter the appearance of their baby? We've scanned this child genetically and he's going to have blue eyes. Well, no, I want him to have green eyes. Stuff like that. And we don't know the long-term consequences. A lot of these things we don't. How will existing inequalities be affected? You mean affected. And the only reason you don't say affected in your pub sheet is because you are not 100% sure whether to use an A or an E. That's all. In the course of 5 minutes online, you could find out the way to determine whether or not to use an A or an E, and then you would not need to use a noun as a verb. But how will existing inequalities be impacted? Well, the pub sheet starts off by mentioning science fantasy, and we've already seen that in science fantasy going back 50 years, which is that the extremely wealthy, or the extremely powerful, the people who have access to this technology, will make better people. They will make a point of removing all genetic defects, all genetic possibility of genetic diseases. They'll make a point of doing that. What parent wouldn't do that? They'll lavish all of their money using this technology to make sure that their baby is born perfect. And the people who don't have that money or don't have the political power to have access to that technology won't be able to do that. There are science fiction stories chock-a-block that deal with exactly that question. I wonder if we're going to face that. I wonder if that is actually going to become true. That would be amazing. What will this mean geopolitically, economically, militarily? Militarily, yeah. What do you do? Like, for instance, in a totalitarian state, let's say a totalitarian state were to develop and perfect this technology and make it widespread. If that country demands compulsory military service, does that mean that country would make better babies, increase the genetic disposition for the elimination of muscle toxins, the building of muscle tissue? You hear, if you spend as much time with young weightlifters as I do, you hear all about good genetics. That phrase comes up all the time. Good genetics. You go onto the fitness, so-called fitness community on YouTube. It's hard for me to call it fitness because they're all tobacco addicts. So they don't care about fitness. They care about making money selling programs to biddable young boys who want to look like them. And but one way or another, you go to those channels, and half the channel is about discipline and, are you a lion or a lamb and all that macho stuff. But a solid other half running through all of those channels and all of those videos is good genetics. Do you have good genetics? Will your genetics respond well to a workout program? And this puts those up for sale. This puts that aspect of physical fitness up for sale. What if, is the predisposition for hair loss genetic? Is the predisposition for losing eyesight, for needing glasses, is that all genetic? If it all is, imagine it. What if science further develops that that propensities for cancer are genetic, and begins to be able to read them? Well, then you could eliminate all of that if you were wealthy enough. Ooh. All right. In this book, bioethicist Francois Baylis provides access to these questions and countless others that are being asked in the scientific community right now. Within the next few decades, human gene editing will palpably affect us all. Amazing. Amazing. The author argues that we must participate in discussions about this technology today so that we can play a role in determining our future, rather than leave our fate in the hands of scientific, corporate, and wealthy elites, which is certainly where it will end up. How could it be otherwise? Now I want to read this thing right away, and it doesn't come out until, when did I say? September? This doesn't come out until September, but now I want to read it now. How utterly fascinating. How utterly fascinating. What do you think? If you had all the money in the world and this technology were at your fingertips, what would you do? Oh, man. All right. Altered Inheritance. That's our next book. We're doing fine. For academic press book, we're doing fine. And now we'll move on to these last two. What would be the reason? I'm sure that hub seed is correct, but what would be the reason? If, for instance, you had two deaf parents, and they got pregnant, and their doctor told them, well, we've done a genetic scan of your child, and he will be born deaf. If the doctor then followed that up, let's say 30 years from now, the doctor followed that pronouncement up by saying, but, your insurance covers the alteration of that defect. We can alter it the next time you come in to visit. It's an outpatient procedure. We'll alter it, and then your baby will be born without that defect. Your baby will be born with hearing. Would those parents object? Would any parents in that position object? And if they did, why would they? It has to be religious, right? That has to be the only possible explanation for why anyone would object to that. What if those parents were told that, your child is, your child's due in October, but your child carries a genetic blood defect. You are both carriers, but you don't have it, but your child is going to express it. Your child is going to have an expensive and life-threatening blood defect. It's genetic. Your insurance covers it, or you have enough money so we can fix it in your next visit. If a fundamental religious parents hear that and say no, then are they guilty of attempted murder? Then should the state intervene? Oh my God, what a nightmare. This book now suddenly seems too short. Okay, all right, let's just move on for now. Okay. Oh, fantastic. All right. I think we saw this already. Boy, oh boy, though, I'm happy to tell you about it again. Absolutely happy. So this comes out in a few days. And this is a great author. So we pay heed. When there's a great author, we pay heed. This is, I believe, a collection of essays. We'll find out. This is Places and Names on War, Revolution, and Returning by Elliot Ackerman. Let's see here. Elliot Ackerman has reckoned with the horrors of war from many angles. He has guided fellow Marines through brutal urban combat in Iraq, interviewed Syrian democratic activists about their failed revolution, and sat down with former members of Al-Qaeda in Iraq to discuss the future of the Middle East. He is a decorated Marine, and in this book he weaves together these vivid stories illuminating the stunning realities of the war-torn Middle East. The result is a powerful meditation on contemporary geopolitics as well as the terrible lure of combat. And I have reviewed this author. I reviewed his novel, Dark at the Crossing, but I have read everything. Dark at the Crossing impressed me, and I've read everything that he's written so far. He is both a former White House fellow and a Marine, serving 5 tours of duty in Iraq and Afghanistan, where he received the Silver Star, the Bronze Star for Valor, and the Purple Heart, which would make him, an authority anyway, but not all the awards in the world can make you a good writer, and he is. He's a brilliant writer. So this comes out real soon, and this is just a collection of his interviews and occasional pieces about war. Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay, Places and Names by Elliot Ackerman. Great. We are doing fine for this mail haul. And let's do this last one. We'll see if our luck holds out all the way to the end. Wow. The Harvard book worked. It did its magic. It impressed me. Now I'm curious to know all about it. And Saladin and Elliot Ackerman. So what is this? What is this like? Oh, okay. All right. Last one is a big fat historical novel. Comes out in September. I think I already have a copy of this, but I don't know if we've seen it. This is by Sarah Donati, who's an extremely experienced veteran of historical novels. And this is Where the Light Enters. And there are couples walking on Brooklyn Bridge. Obstetrician Dr. Sophie Savard returns home to the achingly familiar rhythms of Manhattan in the early spring of 1884 to rebuild her life after the death of her husband. With the help of Dr. Anna Savard, her dearest friend, cousin, and fellow physician, she plans to continue her work aiding the disadvantaged women society would rather forget. As Sophie sets out to construct a new life for herself, Anna's husband, Detective Sergeant Jack Mazzanotti, calls on them both to consult on 2 new cases. The wife of a prominent banker has disappeared into thin air, and the corpse of a young woman is found with baffling wounds that suggest a killer is on the loose. In New York, it seems that the advancement of women has brought out the worst in some men. Unable to ignore the plight of New York's less fortunate, these intrepid cousins draw on all their resources to protect their patients. Oh, wow. So it sounds like it's going to be partly a murder mystery. And I'm hoping, of course, the natural, immediate jump when reading that back cover copy. The 2 cases, the wife of a prominent banker has disappeared into thin air, and the corpse of a young woman is found with baffling wounds. You put those 2 things together like that, the immediate mystery reader's jump is that the prominent banker is responsible in both cases. And I'm hoping that there's more going on here than this nice, big, thick thing. But it sounds like it's going to be, it's female doctors in 19th century New York, which is interesting enough on its own. But it sounds like there's going to be a bit of a murder mystery in there. That's fascinating. Okay, so this comes out in September. Boy, I'm actually kind of tempted. I haven't read a Sarah Donati novel in a long time. I'm actually kind of tempted to read this now, but I can't do that with all these things. After all, I have Jeff June books to read. So we have a bunch of winners this time around. We have Places and Names by Elliot Ackerman. I strongly recommend this author, no matter what you find by him. And also, not just books. If you see him in a periodical, in a table of contents in a periodical, if you see him, like for instance, I don't know if he's on Twitter, but if you follow him on Twitter and he links to his own articles, read them. He is really worth reading. Then we have Where the Light Enters by Sarah Donati, a historical novel with maybe just a bit of alienist-style murder mystery in Gilded Age New York. Then The Life and Legend of the Sultan Saladin by a Crusades expert. And on, the pub she refers to him as one of the most unique characters in the Crusades, but actually there is no other figure anywhere in the Crusades that's as interesting as Saladin. So, and this is a book about him. So, and Altered Inheritance, certainly the winner this time around in terms of getting Steve's attention. All about gene alteration, about altering genes, what can be done, what will be possible, and what it all means, what the ethical implications are. How incredibly fascinating. I can't wait to read any of these, and yet the Elliot Ackerman I will read tonight. The others are a little bit down the road, and that's the horrible temptation of my line of work, is that there are all sorts of great books between now and then that I haven't read that need attention. So I will probably just put these away until I get their finished copies. But not the Elliot Ackerman. I will read this now. I will read this today. So that's it. That was our first mail haul. If I get another mail haul of any size, I will try to remember to film. Because we don't want to be missing mail hauls just because we're doing shorter ones. So I'll wrap this up for now. But I will see you soon. Thank you, Book 2.